Happy holidays, everyone. Welcome to another Why No One Uses video. The perk we will talk about today is Any Means Necessary, one of the only perks in the game that calls forth your inner Hulk Hogan. I just want to say, yeah, I've been gone for a while. And that was mainly because I had final exams and essays, and there was just work piling up on me, and I had to sacrifice making videos to finish that work. Luckily, the semester has finally ended, and I can get back to making videos once again. Maybe more than just Why No One Uses videos, but we'll see. Anyways, I'm also changing the videos to be a bit more fun sounding, because I kind of found my first two videos to sound way too dull for me, specifically with my voice. Anyways, let's get back to the discussion of today's video, because let's face it, I've kept you all waiting long enough. Any Means Necessary is very simple to understand. When you are near a dropped pallet, you can hold the action button or E, and after a 4-second animation time, you can lift the pallet back up. I'll show you an example on the screen now. The perk then goes on a 60-second cooldown. Another thing to mention about Any Means Necessary is that you grow a third eye on your forehead, allowing you to see the auras of drop pallets map wide. This aura reading effect is only active, however, when the cooldown is off. Any Means Necessary is probably one of my favorite perks in the game, because it isn't designed for looping, gen rushing, or speed healing. It's a much more silly perk that has an effect that can be quite useful in certain situations. And more specifically, it can come in handy against killers who tend to ignore kicking pallets and instead move to a different loop once the survivor leaves. Because of the aura reading effect, you can rush over to the pallet and reset it, allowing other teammates to use the effects of the pallet once again while they are in chase. Another benefit I can give the perk is that it, funnily enough, can counteract one killer, that being Nemesis. Although Nemesis can cut through pallets like butter at tier 2, these zombies have the density of peanut brittle. One of the things I like to do against these zombies when they try following me at a generator is leading them to a pallet and then smashing it on their head, resetting their spawn location. With Any Means Necessary, I can then just reset the pallet back up and allowing it to have a second chance. One last positive about the perk that I will mention is the new aura reading effect, and you can pretty much tell where someone is in chase with it. So this pretty much gives you a general area of where both survivor and killer are. Not completely, but just a general area. The perk, however, although being one of the more funny design perks, is ignored by the general player base, and there's several reasons why. One of the general problems with the perk is that it has a long cooldown period before being able to be used. I understand that behavior was scared of the perk being able to reset utility, especially since the game is designed to have a limited resource. However, killers normally kick pallets down, making it so it's no longer usable. And because of that, it makes Any Means Necessary turn from being an interesting idea of refreshing utility to being more useless than Sakura and Naruto. Also, boon totems now exist. I think we've passed the point of sanity in DBD. Another problem the perk has is its lengthy animation time. I found many times in my games where I could reset a pallet, however the killer ended up showing themselves at the moment I was going to pick the pallet back up, making me lose all my progress on the animation time. Granted, the animation isn't locked, and you can leave it anytime you want, but it gets annoying when you're just about to lift the pallet and the killer cancels it with a mouse 1. The biggest problem with the perk that makes all the other negatives pale in comparison is that Any Means Necessary is one of the few perks in the game that actually is countered by the killer. Against killers like Trapper and Wraith, Any Means Necessary is decent. Against killers like Bubba, Billy, and Demogorgon, who can break pallets quickly with their powers, and then the perk begins to have trouble. Against killers like Pyramid Head or Nemesis, who can hit over the pallet, then the perk struggles even more. Then there's Nurse, who just makes the perk fall apart because no one will use a pallet. Even though the perk does have harsh negatives, it still has a good effect, making it stand out from the ordinary. It's also one of the few perks in Why No One Uses that I don't think needs much of a buff. I have 3 options that behavior can do to make the perk feel nicer to use. Also, these are just my ideas, and I could be wrong about how strong or weak the effects could be, but you already know that. The first option to buff the perk is allow the aura reading effect to last permanently. Like I said, it deactivates once the perk is on cooldown, and with a buff like this, it just makes it a little better. One of the biggest reasons I love Enemies Necessary is because I can tell where the killer and survivor are. Granted, it's not completely accurate, but it does give me a general location to work with. The second option is something I personally wouldn't think would make the perk broken, however I could always be wrong. I would like to see the perk have a reduced cooldown from 60 seconds down to 40. Already the amount of trouble the perk faces with killers kicking pallets down, as well as some killers tending to ignore its threats, this change would just make the perk feel more rewarding when using it, with you being able to use it more frequently. That is, if the killer doesn't break the pallets immediately. Or his nurse. The last option is a bit of wishful thinking, but I would like Enemies Necessary to have a reduced animation time from 4 to 3 seconds. When you do use the perk, it's normally out of chase, however there are times where the killer catches you at the last second, leading you not being able to pick the pallet back up. By reducing that time by 1 second, it keeps the perk from being able to pick up pallets during chases, but at the same time allows you a window of opportunity to refresh some utility. Before we end the video, I wanted to include one more thing, that being, if you want to use the perk, I will share with you the type of playstyle I personally use when playing with Enemies Necessary. This isn't a perk that you can use in the chase, else you will cry, because one thing I didn't mention is that the perk can be kicked down, or killers can kick the pallet while using Enemies Necessary, so be careful about that. Instead, you want to use the perk more as a cleanup perk. As soon as you know the killer has left the loop and the pallet is still there, then you can use this chance to pick it back up so your teammates will have some utility they can reuse. I personally like working on a gen, and once it's finished, I use this time to either look for another gen to work on, or I look around for any pallets I can reset. Also, if the killer didn't break Shack pallet, I don't know why, but if they didn't break it, reset it as soon as possible. It's one of the strongest pallets in the game, and being able to reset that utility is incredible. That's all I have to really say about Enemies Necessary. Let me know down in the comments your thoughts about the perk, as well as any possible perks to include in this series. I would also like to thank all of you for the support you've been bringing me because, yeah, that's a lot of views. Leave a like and all of that, and good luck in your games. You will need it.